So I reckon those fans are not meant to be changed, but welcome to Tech Notice. We'll change them anyway. So, remember this Zotac Magnus one that we did first impressions on a little while ago? The thing is, you can actually upgrade quite a few parts. And this is where this box comes in. Obviously, this comes from Noctua, which is always exciting to receive stuff from here. So we're gonna be looking at upgrading quite a lot of things inside here to make it even better. I'm excited. I hope you are. Let's jump right in.
Licensing Windows has never been easier and cheaper. Go to whokeys.com, search for Windows 10 Pro license, or click on the link in the video description below. Purchase the license and use the code TN20 to get a 20% discount. Paste the key into the activation settings and you're all done. By the way, this license also works for Windows 11 when upgraded from licensed Windows 10. Check out whokeys.com in the video description below.
What do we have? First of all, we have this cooler. So this is a very low profile cooler, Noctua NHL9i. Super small, so we're gonna change that heatsink out from there with this one. But I'm not sure if you know, but Noctua recently has released fan duct kits as well. So we're gonna use this one here as well because we can pull some cold air from the side of the case rather than recycling within the case. So this is going to be quite an exciting upgrade over there. I think these are just fan extension cables. Yeah, so fan splitter cables, as you can see. So it takes from one fan to two. Then we have two Noctua chromax. They're black and they're NF A9X14 fans. Then we have two of these. And then last of all, we have something like this. So basically, this is the smallest fan you've ever seen. Can you see this over there? That tiny little bit over here is the fan. So this is a 40mm fan. It's 10mm deep, this one. And then this one is 20. Yeah, so this is 20mm deep. So hopefully we can change this PSU fan out. I'm not sure how we're gonna get to that, but we'll see. So first of all, this top cover and then those fans that we have here for replacement. Now the thing is that those fans over here connect to this like non-standard fan hub that has some random fan headers over here, and I'm not sure if all of those pins are exactly the same as like on this usual PWM connector. So that's why we have those fan splitter cables, because we have one CPU fan header over there actually. So we're gonna split the CPU fan header, and that's how we're gonna get those fans to be working. So I'm gonna take our RAM out. Take this SATA 2.5-inch SSD or hard drive cage. Then let's take our SSD off here as well. That's our OS drive over here. So basically now we're gonna try to disassemble this thing and get as many parts out as possible.
I didn't know it was him.
The main thing is we need to get the motherboard out because we need to get to the back bracket. Okay, here comes the cooler. At least they have put a lot of thermal paste over here. It's slightly dry and like powdery rather than wet. I still think it's gonna do its job, but I think we can do better. So the interesting thing is this CPU actually is socketed over here. So you could change the CPU out if you wanted to, as you can see. I'd love to put a 10900K in there, but I'm not sure what happens if I put 10900K in there. So the interesting thing about this cooler is that you actually screw it in from the other side of the motherboard, which means we're gonna have to get the motherboard somehow out. So that's gonna be our next mission. In this PC, it's interesting like working on this because it feels like the PC case has been like built around the motherboard and the components because it's all so tight and all so different. So now we can actually take the back bracket off over here. There we go. This on the back over here feels a little bit interesting. I'm not sure what's going on over here, but there's like they've run a cable from this header, whatever that is, into this one over there. Put some glue on, and another cable onto that one over there and put some glue on. Feels like they forgot something and they wanted to add extra extra bits over there or something like that. Okay, that's gonna sit over there. This actual kit comes with thermal paste as well. As always, more is better than less. So I'm gonna do an X today. Whoa, that was a lot over there. So the cooler is installed. We're gonna need to get the power supply off somehow as well. So have a look at the power supply fan on the bottom over there. Okay, here's the power supply with all these cables. So the power supply is gonna stay like it is, fortunately or unfortunately. How tiny is this power supply though? I think the power supply fan over here is 15 millimeters rather than 10 or 20, so it's something in the middle. So we're just gonna leave that one over there, but I'll put this back so the power supply will stay on the bottom over there. So we installed the cooler and we're going to do the fans now next on this top cover over here. But the interesting thing is you can't really change the cooler, at least this Noctua cooler, which is like one of the best ones for this small factor coolers. You can't exchange that because you're going to have to get on the other side of the motherboard. But in order to get the motherboard out, you're going to have to pull this, you know, warranty void if removed sticker from these screws to get underneath the motherboard, which is a little bit interesting. Okay, so they give you upgrade ability, but they don't really want you to change the cooler. Okay, the interesting thing is this included fan is 0.3 amperes and this is 0.21 amperes, so it seems like this is lower speeds, but hey, it's Noctua. So we've got a little bit of an issue with these Noctua fans. So basically there's little standoffs over there that have to go like inside the fan because there's like little holes in there. So when you take the included fan, it just pops in there all the way down, whereas the Noctua fans are a little bit smaller holes so they don't go in there. But it's nothing that a little bit of a drill can't fix. So I reckon those fans are not meant to be changed, but welcome to Tech Notice. We'll change them anyway. So it's 5mm holes that we need to make. Haha! There we go. Absolutely fine. So let's do the same with the other fan. With the chromax fans, you get all these different colors of vibration pads that you can change. So it's pretty cool. You've got some green ones, yellow ones, red ones, blue ones, black ones, and white ones. I went with the black ones over there just to match this like aesthetic over there. So what do we do with these cables then? Basically, I've had these two Y splitters over there. One Y splitter here on the CPU fan, and then this other one is gonna put both of these top fans together, as you can see here. So let's plug this one in. Okay, and then let's plug the other one in. This is gonna be for the CPU. Let's plug this one in over here. Let's put our RAM back. We're gonna look at the fan ducting over here. Okay, all of these are different foam parts, and then we're gonna have to put something over there. So what we have to do is unscrew these fan screws and put these new screws over there. Usually how you do this is you take like a piece of toothpick or something like that and then push it through like this hole against the fan over there and then mark it over there, and then you'll measure it like how thick you'll have to put there, because in here you've got different thicknesses of like little foam boards. And the idea is that you would fill up the space between the cooler. As you can see over there, there's a space between the cooler and the side panel, but you want this to be filled up. So basically that the fan would suck the air from the outside and then push it in rather than just circulating the air inside the case. So because our case, it's quite easy to manage, what I'll do is I'm going to put this, I think this is a 7mm one, on the top over here. And then I want to see what this side panel will look like. Perfect. We have a 7mm one over here, and that's like squishing it pretty beautifully, just like in there. If I put another millimeter on, or 2mm one, it's just gonna get too tight, but this is gonna be just perfect. So now it's not taking the warm air from inside the case, but it's just pulling it from the outside and then pushing it down, and then it circles out like the hot hair will come out from here or from the top, which is much better. If you have a longer gap over there and you need to like match and mix and match to get exactly the same length, what you do is you use these little black standoffs, and then you measure it exactly the same length and then cut it to size, because then you can have lots of these, and then you can put together, look, 2, 3, 4, however many you want. And if the gap is over 10, 14 millimeters, you might want to opt for just a better cooler, because that's going to be a better idea than just filling this cap over there. But sometimes you can't fill the cap, sometimes you can. In our case, we can, so I'm quite excited to see what the temps are going to be like. The interesting thing over here is you have to plug in those power cables before you put the graphics card in. We're gonna go back to the other side, the cooler side. Let's put back our Wi-Fi antenna over here. Let's add our OS drive back in. The Wi-Fi card actually has like this little plastic cover as well. There we go. That just keeps those antennas intact so that they, just in case, it won't pop off. Let's add another SATA drive as well, actually. Basically, you just pop it in here. Super easy to install. And then we just push it in here. See how easy the SATA 2.5-inch SSD install was? I wish this wasn't the same on a big PC case, because there you have to have like these cables, but this, you just pop in, boom, that's it. Make sure that you have this cable from our splitter up. I'm gonna connect this up first, and then we could actually leave it on the side over here as well. And I think our upgrade is complete. Let's see if it turns back on. And let's press start. This is so much more quiet. Like so much quieter. So, welcome back. Off the camera, I actually repasted the CPU cooler from Noctua and put it back in there, because at first I realized that the temps on the Noctua were higher, so I thought maybe it was my thermal paste application, so I did it again. But then now, when further investigating what has been the problem or issue over here, then I've realized that actually there is something more going on than just the actual cooler. So the noise of the PC, as you can see over here, the noise floor is roughly about 40 dB in this room or something like that. If the PC is 100% utilized, it adds extra 10 dB. And then when it's the turbo boost, it's going to be around another 9 dB, so 19, 20 dB, something like that. But the interesting thing is, with this CPU and this cooling thing, there's like 2 power limits. It has a short burst of power that it can go for, like up to 224 watts, as you can see over here. So basically, on the left over here, you can see previous stock settings, and then on the right, you can see my upgraded version with the Noctua cooling and everything like that. And then you might be seeing like the higher temps over here, thinking flipping like 87C compared to 75C maximum for the same test. 30 minutes Cinebench R23 with the same, ambient temperature. How is the newer one better? And then I looked, that's why I repasted it as well, because I thought, oh, my thermal paste application wasn't so good. But then looking at the CPU package power with the new cooling, it allows the CPU to boost much higher, wattage or pull much more. It's 191 compared to the 181 that we saw in stock settings, which means that we're getting slightly better performance in different places, and this actually reflects on the Cinebench R23 score as well. This is 9,081 points. Previously, I did it before we shot this camera or this video, it was a 9,095, so close to 9,100, whereas previously I hardly reached 9,000 score on this Cinebench. It's like in the 8,900, something like that score. So I can easily see that this is much better because it's boosting much higher. And even though it's saying the core thermal throttling, I honestly think these sensors are off, because whatever benchmark I'm running, I'm getting higher scores, slightly higher scores, like not massively higher scores, but like 1-2%. It could be within the margin of error, but I do see a higher scores, which is interesting. And even though it boosts to 87 degrees at like the initial boost of the, you know, when you're getting this extra power pulled through, when it drops down to 65 watts as the PL1 power limit over here, as you can see, then it's going to be very, very quiet and very good temperatures. It sits around 61, 62 degrees over here. As you can see, this is 100% utilization, and it pulls 62, 64 watts, as you can see on the 30-minute test. I did another screenshot over there. But as you can see, when it's 100% utilized and it pulls to the PL2 power limit, the cooling is absolutely fine. 61C at 100% utilization with this cooler, it's very, very cool. And it is very, very quiet. The previous noise was just so loud, and the tone of the noise was very, very annoying. Now look at this. So you can see that the noise level was 40. This is 100% utilized with 65 watts going through there at the moment. And then when it was pulling about 180 or the PL2 limit, boosting it, it was around 20 dB. So it was a little bit louder, you know, you can hear the fans. This is completely fine. I'm completely happy with this one, because even if you had a big tower, you'd have similar noise performance. But the upgraded fans are very, very good. That's my point over here. So is this Noctua cooling worth it? I do think it is worth it, especially if you plan to use this CPU or this PC all the time. It's going to give you quieter performance and a little bit of better performance of this. So I would definitely go with this one, because the original one was constantly ramping up and constantly ramping up. But this one is actually most of the time very, very quiet. Your ears are going to thank you after this upgrade. I'm going to leave the NOCTUA parts that I used in the description below. So another thing I want to talk about are the ports over here. Basically, I did the test with the ports and tested like which speeds are those ports over here. The bad news, only bad news over here, is the SD card slot in the front over here, which is only like USB 2.0 speeds, and you're only going to get maximum of 45 megabytes per second transfer speeds, which I wasn't too happy about. So if you're running some of the newer cameras that have like up to 300 megabytes per second transfer speeds of cards, you're not going to be able to utilize it with these ports over here. The USB Type A and Type C in the front are 10 gigabit ports, which I'm very happy about. So I was able to transfer files like 700, 800 megabytes per second. The back ports over there, the very bottom two ports are 5 gigabits in speed, and then the four above are 10 gigabits in speed. But be careful like where you plug your stuff in, because when I had my keyboard plugged into the 10 gigabit board next to it and I was testing the 10 gigabit board, then suddenly I think they might be sharing bandwidth, but because one of them dropped down to about 45 megabytes per second, something like that. I would put your keyboard and mouse on the bottom USB 3.0 ports, where you're only going to get 5 gigabits in speed, and keep your mouse and keyboard over there. And then the fast transfer speeds are either in the front of the case or in the back of the USB Type A case. I'm very happy to see that the front panel connectors are as fast as the back ones, which really like shows that you can just have it on the desk and just, you know, use these USB Type A or Type C ports over there, no problem. And if you have a SD card reader, just plug it in on the top, on the front over here, Type A or Type C port, and then you're getting your actual maximum, you know, transfer speeds of 300 megabytes per second or something like that. So generally, when we're concluding this PC and like the review of this PC now, trying different things and trying to use this, I think it's a very interesting PC because it's very, very small. Like, it's the smallest PC I have tried. It's kind of semi-portable, so you can take it anywhere you want, but also it's got absolutely tons of graphics power on the PC. It's got a full flat RTX 3070, you know, 220 watts power that we're putting for this 3070. It's not max Q like any of the laptops. It's absolutely amazing. Now, the RAM speeds over there, on the other hand, could have been, you know, higher. So it doesn't support XMP. It's only 2667 transfers per second speeds over there. Because the motherboard has a simple ITX size, they could have just standardized the motherboard and put an ITX motherboard in there so we have an option to change it. That would have been really, really nice, and maybe perhaps just use some PCI riser cables to just figure out the front ports and the graphics card on the other side. That would have been a much better option, because then we would have had the option which motherboard we want to go for, and also which platform, either AMD or Intel, because at the moment we're just stuck with Intel 10th gen and you can't even put 11th gen on there. You can upgrade the CPU to 10900, which would be very awesome, because then you get 10 cores instead of 8 cores. I would have loved to test that, but I just didn't manage to get a hold of the 10 core CPU. The performance per watt would have been better, because the power limitations would be the same for this chip, but then you would literally have more cores, and the single core performance would probably be a bit better because it's been a bit better CPU. So if you do want to upgrade that, you can upgrade that, because it's a simple socketed CPU that you can just upgrade. So I'm a bit confused about the created PC, because it's got a ton of graphics power but not a lot of CPU power. I would have loved to see an option where we have more CPU power as well. So if you're a photographer, for example, I would get the 3060 version of this, because you don't need a lot of graphics power. If you're a video editor, okay, you can really utilize any of the graphics cards over here, but only if you do a lot of GPU effects, because if you use the like integrated the CPU or iGPU for encoding or hardware acceleration, you're getting very good timeline performance. So go check out, you know, my performance of this Zotac on the timeline performance and how it worked over there. And as you can see, the GPU was playing back really the effects and color grading and stuff, because the iGPU is equal really with the NVIDIA NVENC encoders or decoders as the iGPU. So that puts me like in a very interesting position, because we don't really need that big of a graphics card unless you really just want to pull it out and put it into your system. But we could do with more CPU power, because the CPU as a video editor, or if you're 3D, you know, modeler or something like that, will be the bottleneck of this system. Unless you're in Blender and you use like GPU for the rendering and things like that, then that could be an interesting option over there. But I don't think there's a lot of like more GPU heavy stuff. It's going to be the CPU that's going to be the bottleneck of this. Unless you're doing like gaming, okay, yeah, then it's all right, because then most likely the GPU will be the bottleneck, not the CPU. But I think it's also interesting for people who maybe run a lot of graphics in a church or in a venue where you have screens and you want to run a lot of effects and, you know, motions, perhaps maybe 2 4K screens and stuff like that. Then the iGPU isn't quite cutting it. Then you can have a full fat RTX 3070, have lots of graphics power to run a lot of screens. It's very small. You have a lot of, you know, HDMI DisplayPort connectors over there. So you're going to be very happy. So I think in a church setting, for example, I think this is going to be very interesting PC. You can easily run your Pro Presenter or big graphics, because it's got a lot of graphics power over there. So what I want to know from you guys is now, would you like to see more CPU power in a system like this? And also, is there a better pre-built small factor PC for creators with more CPU power? Let me know what you think. I'd love to know from you, because as far as I know, this is like a very unique one where you can change the CPU, change the GPU really, and you have a few options over there. So let me know if there is any options. I'd love to hear from you. Other than that, I'm very happy with this. I'm super interested. I think this is a cool PC. I might be using this in my studio over here as the secondary PC rather than this big tower over there, because often when I'm doing like screen recordings, they're all on OBS and they're using NVENC encoders. So this PC would be awesome for that. So likes if you enjoyed this video, subs if you'd like to see more, and I'll meet you in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what you think. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.